Big thank you to Nebula for sponsoring this video. This is John Roth. He's the CEO of a company called Nortel. He's about to be smug. Deservingly so.
Let's move on to Lucent, the big competitor south of the border. What do they do better than you?
Not much. Pretty good at marketing, but if you look at the results, we grew 43% in the carrier space in the U.S. last year, well, in this last quarter. I think that's double their numbers.
At the time of this clip, Nortel was the second highest Canadian company on the global Fortune 500 list, at rank 216. But he doesn't plan on stopping there. Just 1 year from now, Nortel will be the 9th most valuable company in the entire world. 75% of North America's backbone internet traffic travels through his company's networks, an achievement that will earn him the title of Canadian CEO of the Year. This is also John Roth. Or rather, it's a comedian impersonating John Roth. Not particularly well, mind you. There's no genuine attempt at his voice, and the mannerisms are way too high energy. And yet, the audience is eating it up.
Now, final question, Mr. Roth. Where will Nortel be, say, a year from now?
Linda, Nortel is strong. I guarantee investors I will continue to generate profits for them. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get back to work. Spare some change?
In this moment, however brief it was, John Roth was maybe the most hated man in Canada. Nortel had been the most widely held stock in the country, and it had just cost them their pensions. Nortel had broken an entire country's economy. How did it happen? 3 words. It's ancient history. Here's a statement. The telephone was invented in Canada. It's a statement that could be true, so long as you don't look too hard at the several footnotes that are necessary to justify it. But let's go ahead and do that. Alexander Graham Bell was a Scottish immigrant who moved to Canada with his parents in 1870. Later on, he got a job as a teacher and began experimenting with sending voices over metal wires as electrical signals. Over the years, he would develop this idea with his partner Watson, and in 1876, Bell said his famous words, "Watson, come here, I need you," over a working telephone prototype in Boston. The Canadian claim to the telephone is frankly very silly. Bell supposedly wrote about the underlying mechanism of a telephone at his parents' home in Brantford, Ontario, but he wouldn't get a working prototype for another 2 years. You can't even really argue it based on citizenship either, because Bell was never technically a Canadian, but a self-identified Scotsman who was actively applying to become an American. Of course, this isn't even the biggest elephant in the room. Bell was beaten to the invention of the telephone by at least one person, maybe more. There's Antonio Meucci, whose telephone prototype predates Bell's by almost a decade. His lawsuit against Bell was headed to the Supreme Court until he died in 1889. Alicia Gray famously submitted a patent on the exact same day as Bell. There are disputes over the exact timeline here, but it's a bit of a moot point because neither man had made a functioning prototype yet. Bell did get one working a week later, but the design of his receiver had been altered, becoming suspiciously similar to the one in Gray's design. Info he shouldn't have known about unless he had somehow seen Gray's application. As you're going to see many times in this story, the history of industry is not about the first to invent, but the first to market. Bell got the patent for the telephone because he hired a better lawyer. Simple as that. The most lucrative patent in history led to a factory, the factory led to a company, and the company became a behemoth. Through decades of aggressive expansion, brutal boardroom takeovers, underhanded back alley sabotage, and the limitless funding of JP Morgan, that single patent evolved into the most ruthless corporation in American history, at&t. A terrifying beast that gobbled up hundreds of independent phone companies. A monopoly that at its peak once controlled 82% of America's telephone lines. Footnotes or not, the history of the telephone is an American one. But why then have I seen this statement, at least in part, claimed by some Canadian sources? Why is this a hill that some Canadians seem willing to die on? Because the Canadian identity, if there is such a thing, is one defined in opposition to the United States. If you want to be dramatic, and I do sometimes, Canada is just a slightly more autonomous 51st state. Both countries descend from a combination of English and French colonies, built on territory stolen from its indigenous inhabitants. Lands divided by a border so arbitrary, most of it is literally just the 49th parallel. Why some of the colonies rebelled against the British and why others stayed loyal came down to language, religion, local economies, and proximity to the British Empire. The settlers in these two colonies always had a lot in common, and due to their geographic proximity, there has always existed an uncommonly close relationship. It just so happens that that relationship is more than a little lopsided. Pierre Trudeau, one of our more outspoken prime ministers, summed it up like this: "Living next to you is in some ways like sleeping with an elephant. No matter how friendly and even-tempered is the beast, if I can call it that, one is affected by every twitch and grunt." America is simply a much older and densely populated nation. America's first colonists arrived almost 2 centuries earlier than the bulk of Canada's, and the Americans had gone and finished their Civil War before modern Canada was even created in the 1860s. Couple that with a colder climate and harsher terrain, for almost the entire time the two countries have existed, Canada has had 1/10 the population and 1/10 the economy of its southern neighbor. Even just California, despite having roughly the same population, has an economy 50% larger. Ever since the War of 1812 ended in a stalemate, Canada has never had to worry about being militarily annexed by the US. Instead, Canada has spent most of its existence fending off another more indirect form of control: economic subservience. The company that owns the majority of our newspapers is 2/3 owned by an American hedge fund, most of the media we consume is American, and the basis of our economy is ripping natural resources out of the ground, shipping them off to America, and then buying them back for twice the price in the form of fancy toys. We're America's biggest customer, but they're not ours, and that's a precarious position to be in. Canada's first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, had just returned to power in the election of 1878. Canada was in the midst of a deep depression that was partially brought on by the Americans canceling a trade agreement in the middle of their Civil War. Macdonald was keenly aware of the public's distrust of American business, and although behind closed doors he was in favor of free trade with the Americans, he knew they would never sign a new agreement. And so he used anti-American rhetoric to call the rival Liberal Party, quote, veiled traitors, and managed to win both the 1878 and 1891 elections by stoking fears of American annexation. Macdonald's platform was called the National Policy, the centerpiece of which was an aggressive import tax on all American products. The tariff was designed to keep cheap American products out of Canada to promote a strong, homegrown manufacturing industry. The national policy and anti-Americanism dominated Canada's political agenda for decades, and a later attempt at a free trade agreement similarly defeated the government of Wilfrid Laurier in 1911, where it was once again painted as an act of treason. However, the national policy, whose stated goal was to keep Canada British, had arguably backfired. It had only made Canada more reliant on American industry. Take, for example, at&t. Having secured the Canadian patent for the telephone, their original plan was to simply make telephones in America and ship them up to Canada. The new tariffs made that a complete no-go, so the company hatched a plan. They hired a former Confederate ship captain, sent him off to Canada with a boatload of money, where he proceeded to execute a series of business moves so rapid that in just a few months, he owned almost all telephone lines in the entire country. Alongside this purchase was a single telephone factory in Montreal, a necessary condition to retain the Canadian patent. Parts would be shipped up from the US, assembled in Canada, completely negating the import tax. This was the birth of the Bell Telephone Company of Canada, and how Canada became a branch plant economy. And as of 1895, that little Montreal branch plant was given a name: Northern Electric and Manufacturing Limited. We've got about a century to go still, but the family resemblance between these two names is clear. Northern made a bunch of stuff: fire alarms, sleigh bells, gramophones, telegraphs, kettles, toasters, lighters, stoves, washing machines, radios. If it ran on electricity, they could probably make it. But their bread and butter was always telephones. Although legally they were separate entities, at&t was always in the background pulling the strings of Bell Canada. With its endless monopoly money, Western Electric was cranking out telephone tech like there was no tomorrow. And Northern Electric got access to technology that no one else did without having to do any R&D. They just took the designs that Western gave them, made their tweaks, and sold them to Canadians. Sometimes the only thing that would change was the logo on the phone. Always the branch plant, never the brains. This symbiotic relationship was just a microcosm of the larger Canadian economy. Even in the 1910s, when at&t is forced to sell off its foreign holdings due to antitrust reasons, it's allowed to keep its stake in Canada because the two countries were so interlinked. Canada had spent its first 50 years relying on its Commonwealth parent of Great Britain, but by the 1920s, Canada was now trading more with the US. As productivity began to rise as America modernized its factories, Canada's were quick to follow. Then, out of nowhere, the markets crashed, ushering in the Great Depression across North America. The 1930s saw 80% of Northern's employees laid off. And then it's World War II, yanking the country and the company out of its depression. Northern becomes a dedicated supplier of military equipment for the government. Canada, like the US, emerges from the war in a relatively prosperous position compared to Europe. Northern now had a backlog of nearly 100,000 telephone orders it had to fulfill. Dragged there by the US, Canada had achieved the second highest adoption rate of phones per 100 people in the entire world, going from just 28,000 phones in 1895 to almost 1 million in 1942. And then suddenly, the elephant rolled over. For years, at&t had been accused of running a vertical monopoly by owning its manufacturer, Western Electric. Desperate to keep its prized possession, at&t settles out of court and makes a trade on two conditions. The first is to stay out of the computer business. Considering that Bell Labs had just invented the transistor, they were really going to regret this one in about 10 years. The second is more relevant to our story. at&t now had to offer the same licensing deal for its patents to anyone who asked. But because at&t owned Bell Canada and was sharing its patents with them for free, that meant that any other US company would be entitled to that same deal. So rather than give away its patents for free, at&t said, you know what? Canada is on its own. The CEO of Northern at the time described it like this: "We are the child of wealthy parents. This is the boot that kicked us out the door. A Canadian subsidiary of a US company lives a very comfortable life. This is the tragedy of Canada. We've made a virtue of imitation." But he also said this: "I'm confident history will say this is the best thing that ever happened to us." Would you believe me that in a little more than half a century, the mouse would be trying to eat the elephant?
North, east, south, west, everywhere you go, Northern Electric is the name to know, from coast to coast in Canada.
In the 1950s, the Canadian government contracted the company Amerada to build a stealth interceptor jet called the Avro Arrow. It was widely considered to be one of, if not the best in its class in the world. Costing around 2.2 billion Canadian dollars in today's money, the Arrow had been the single most expensive R&D project in Canadian history, and it put Canada on the map in the global aerospace industry. But there was no one to sell it to. The American and the British militaries wanted to produce their own jets. And in fact, America turned around and said, hey, why don't you buy our jets instead? In the most controversial move of his career, Prime Minister John Diefenbaker fell in line with American defense policy. He canceled the project, ordered all prototypes destroyed, and left 14,000 Canadians unemployed. Although you can argue over the merits of the Avro Arrow itself, the real failure here was that the government refused to support a transition for the facility it had already spent millions on. A facility that could have been converted to civilian aircraft and given Canada its own equivalent to Boeing. It's ironic that Diefenbaker is remembered for capitulating to American influence. Just days before the election that made him Prime Minister, Diefenbaker had declared that if the Liberals were re-elected, quote, Canada will become a virtual 49th economic state in the American Union. You see, anti-Americanism never truly disappears in Canada, but rather it comes in waves. The stretch of time bookended by the two world wars was a notable period of cooperation between the two nations. But now in the era of the Cold War, Canadians were becoming uncomfortable with the idea that they were simply a sidekick to the US. 1956 saw the government release the results of the Gordon Commission, an economic panel which had spent the last year researching the rapid Americanization of Canada. First, there was culture. By the mid-1950s, 80% of magazine sales were from American brands. Canadian newspapers were still Canadian-owned, but any international coverage was usually borrowed from American papers. The Canadian film industry was almost entirely non-existent. Even if we did have films to show, film distribution was owned entirely by Hollywood, and they had no interest in showing Canadian films. Even our education system tended to be biased towards America. There's a particularly infamous textbook on Canadian politics that for some reason had Abraham Lincoln on the cover. The real heart of the issue, though, was economic. In 1967, 58% of Canada's manufacturing industry was owned by firms whose headquarters were outside of Canada, and 80% of that fraction was American. And the more specialized you got, the higher the fraction went. Transport, electronics, chemicals, all extremely American. The worst by far was cars. Can you name a single Canadian car brand? You can't, because there are none left. Natural resources, which had formed the bedrock of Canada's economy for decades, were lining American pocketbooks. Pulp and paper, smelting, mining, and oil and gas, Alberta's pride and joy, was nearly 2/3 owned by Americans. This was such a touchy subject that there was once a debate in Parliament over whether to allow an American company to build an interprovincial oil pipeline. The debate got so heated, 3 MPs were hospitalized and 1 died of a heart attack. Canada was a branch plant economy, and that was scaring people all across the political spectrum. On the left wing, you had labor organizers who feared that the US would simply set up branch plants in Canada, extract natural resources, and then ship them back down south, where Americans would get to reap the benefits from any newly created manufacturing jobs. On the right wing, the complaints tended to focus on how Canada should instead be re-establishing ties with Britain and the monarchy, and that a loss of economic power to the Americans could eventually lead to a loss of political independence. But between these differing sides, there was one common shared concern. American technology was a crutch. Canada had a huge technological deficit. That's one of the key features of a branch plant economy. Branch plants tend to supply jobs that require less training, like resource extraction or assembly lines. Jobs that are easily moved elsewhere if the cost of labor gets too high. Jobs like finance, marketing, and critically R&D are best kept centralized in the home country. In 1959, if you looked at dollars per capita spent on R&D in the private sector, the US was spending almost 4 times as much as Canada. Here's an even more shocking stat. A government commission in the mid-60s looked at every patent registered in Canada. 95% of them were held by someone outside the country, and 2/3 of that number was in the US. That meant the Canadian industry had to spend millions each year licensing out patents from Americans or costly imports of high-tech equipment. Case in point, Northern Electric. In 1956, the year that at&t had to divest itself, Northern only made 1% of its revenue from its own designs. All the rest were American. For over 60 years, Northern operated mostly on autopilot, assembling American parts using American blueprints. The company atmosphere was described as sleepy and complacent. The CEO at the time joked that you could only get fired for, quote, screwing the boss's daughter, and then only if it was on company premises. Bell Canada was so unsure of Northern that there were multiple times where they considered only 2 options: sell it or shut it down. But there was a third option: break the branch plant cycle, make a Canadian company self-sufficient. And as we've just seen, the political climate at home had never been more supportive. It's not that Northern lacked smart employees, they just hadn't been in charge of the decision-making until now. In fact, Northern's engineers were likely some of the most capable in the entire country. Because of their prior connections to at&t and Bell Labs, the engineers at Northern Electric were some of the first outside America to be able to reverse engineer and learn about the transistor. By the end of the 1960s, they were the single largest microchip supplier in Canada. They helped build the world's largest microwave comm system, the Trans-Canada Skyway, and they managed to develop an antenna designed to track satellites. But the 60s were still a slow period for Northern. When they began the decade, only 1% of their products were Canadian designs. By 1969, they had only managed to increase that number to 6%. The switchover was going too slowly. The only way to get ahead would be to give Canada its own Bell Labs. BNR. Bell Northern Research. Founded in Ottawa in 1971, it mimicked Bell Labs in every way it could. There was a bounty of $500 for every patent you filed. The atmosphere was like that of a university campus, and there was even a signature color, purple, that the employees rallied behind. Even its first president, Donald Chisholm, had been poached from the real Bell Labs. Look, I'm going to be candid for a second here. BNR is the reason I live in the city that I do. My grandfather was one of the founding engineers hired to work there, and he moved my dad's family from Montreal all the way to Ottawa. BNR is not a name most of you would have heard of. and it sadly doesn't have any Nobel Prizes. But so much of the modern communications landscape, the technology that powers the video you're watching right now, was invented in Ottawa. B&R was about to gamble everything to leapfrog Bell Labs. Telephone switches are the most basic building block of a telephone network. Back in the days of Graham Bell, they were originally just sold in pairs, phone A and phone B, and you put them wherever you needed with a giant wire running between them. Obviously, that's not super scalable, so people decided to designate one building in town as an exchange where human operators would physically move wires around to connect different phone lines. This too was phased out in favor of electromechanical contraptions that were the size of entire rooms. This finally gave way to fully electronic switches, which had fewer moving parts, were much less noisy, and overall more reliable. This was the state of telephone technology as the 60s turned into the 70s. Telephone calls had been analog for as long as they had existed, an electronic wave with smooth curves. But since the advent of the transistor, electronic signals could now be sent in binary. Enough ones and zeros could encode any analog signal with enough precision that barely any information would be lost. That was how computers operated, through massive processors crunching thousands of bits and bytes. People realized fairly quickly that if you could combine phones with computers, the possibilities would be endless. Costs would go down, reliability would go up, you could send multiple phone conversations over the same wire, signal degradation and noise over long distances was far easier to correct. You could also expand into what we now consider basic features like call forwarding or a busy line notification. And maybe, in the far future, you could even use phone lines to send data between two computers. Can you imagine that? Sending something other than voice over telephone lines? That'd be like some kind of inter-network. I don't know, maybe there's a better name for that. The problem with this idea is that digital signals can't talk to analog signals, at least not directly. You need to convert them using a codec. Bell Labs had figured this out in 1963, but the process was so complicated and expensive that it was only worthwhile to do for giant long-distance cables and the connections between huge central offices. There was still no fully digital switch at the local level. There was a full-on race between at least 7 countries to break this digital barrier, and Canada was way in last when it jumped in with B&R. So how did Canada come from behind and win it all? It's because at&t had become too complacent. Despite having a huge technological head start, at&t was telling customers that digital switching wouldn't be available for several more years. See, this is the inherent contradiction of monopolies. Their endless resources allow them to develop the best technology and offer the best service. But because they have such a stranglehold on the market, they sometimes stifle innovations that threaten their business model. Case in point, answering machines. Bell Labs invented the technology to record phone calls sometime in the 1940s, but at&t suffocated it, worried that people would stop using phones for business if they knew they could be recorded. Answering machines wouldn't catch on until the 1970s. It was the same with cell phones. Bell Labs first demonstrated a wireless phone in the 1970s, but again, at&t refused to develop it. Why would they create a competing type of phone that didn't use the billions of dollars worth of infrastructure that they had taken decades to establish? Cell phones wouldn't catch on until the 1990s. It was the same thing with digital switching. at&t would be required to update its entire technical ecosystem at a huge cost, not to mention they'd be making their older switches completely redundant. This was an attitude echoed by some executives within Bell Canada. They were certain that a digital switch would kill sales of their just-released SP1 model. But as future CEO John Roth would later say, if you're going to be cannibalized, it's best to be cannibalized by yourself. In 1976, Northern unveiled their newest switch, the SL1, at a trade show they called Digital World, which they hosted at none other than Disney World. The timing was everything. By committing when everyone else was too hesitant, they had caught the rest of the industry by surprise. Because it was the only one of its kind for nearly 2 years, the SL1 became the best-selling switch in the world. After that, the size of the switches just kept increasing. The SL1 became the SL10, then the DMS10, then the DMS100. Northern could handle up to 100,000 phone calls through just a single switch. Last time we checked in, Northern made just 6% of their own designs. By 1975, that was 50%, and by 1977, they were up to 70%. This was an unrecognizable company from just 2 decades ago. In fact, this newfound success was worthy of a name change. Northern Electric was far too generic. Everything was electric these days. How about Northern Telecom? It was also a perfect time to go public. In 1973, they go live on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and a couple years later, they made it into the big leagues, Wall Street. During the 70s, Northern had gone from having earnings of $5 million to $111 million, and the workforce grew to 33,000 people. If Northern was an American company, it would have been ranked 160 on the Fortune 500. Northern's CEO during this time was a man named John Lobb, and there's a quote from him that has pretty much become company folklore. He would often go around asking employees what the company made, hoping they'd take the bait. When they inevitably answered with switches, he'd hit them with the real answer. We don't make switching, goddammit, we make money. Look, I'm a sucker for unsubtle metaphors. Northern's first president was a literal former sea captain. For almost 100 years, Northern was shielded from the perils of the open market, only ever sailing close to shore. By going public on the stock market, this was Northern setting out to sea, taking a risk that a Canadian company could go global. And lucky for them, the hammer came crashing down at the perfect time.
Helping you stay on top of change today and tomorrow. That's the power of networking.
Buying a phone? Buy the one that phone companies have relied on for over 100 years. Northern Telecom, a voice you'll recognize from a name you know. Cool it, Rex.
The breakup of AT&T is the picture-perfect definition of hubris. AT&T was the biggest corporation in the world. It employed around 1 million Americans and provided the cheapest and for many decades, the best phone service in the world. For many Americans, they were the only company you could get a telephone from. And it did so through absolutely crushing business tactics. Although the days of literal sabotage were in the past, now it resorted to brutal boardroom takeovers, political lobbying, and fighting tooth and nail to prevent third-party companies from tapping into its network. It had done all of this with the tacit approval of the US government, which granted it the right to exist as a regulated monopoly, one that had an immense role in the US defense industry. The maternalistic image of Ma Bell, however, had been slowly deteriorating for decades. For some people, AT&T was a brute, a bully whose arrogance had gone unchecked for far too long. Service quality had slipped in recent years, and yet phone bills continued to go up. AT&T finally overstepped when it tried to crush a new rival, and later attempted to ram a bill through Congress, a bill that once and for all would crown it the one telephone company to rule them all. This pissed off just the right people in the Justice Department, which initiated an excruciatingly slow and complex legal battle that played out over a decade and 4 different presidents. Although it initially looked like AT&T would walk away with just another slap on the wrist, to the horror of the executives, they gradually realized that their behemoth wasn't nearly as invincible as they thought it was. The breakup agreement in January of 1982 is perhaps the single most impactful and controversial event in the history of American industry. Unlike the 1956 settlement, which saw AT&T make a few small concessions, this new ruling was a devastating defeat, and it left a massive power vacuum. AT&T had been desperate to keep Western Electric under its control, but in exchange, they had to watch the rest of their empire be smashed into 22 pieces. The local phone companies, the Baby Bells as they were called, could now buy their equipment from anyone they wanted. And of those 22 Baby Bells, Northern snatched up 21. Former Vice Chairman David Weiss said this: "When the divestiture took place, we found that our customers embraced us in a bloody bear hug. They'd been with AT&T and Western Electric all those years and had been taken for granted. In just a couple years, Northern rockets up to become the #2 telecom company in North America, right behind Western Electric. It's much bigger, but now extremely depressed cousin. Previously, Northern had negotiated an unspoken deal with AT&T that they would stay out of their turf. They would only sell to the independents who despised AT&T. But now, the big bad mob boss had been whacked." The impact of this ruling is obvious on Northern's stock price. You can see in '82, when it becomes clear that AT&T is going to have to give in, that Northern begins to slowly tick up. By the time the breakup becomes official in '84, Northern's stock price is 3 times what it was. It had broken the curse of the branch plant. As of '82, Northern was officially making more money in the US market than in Canada. This was always bound to happen. The market in America is 10 times as big. The real question was how much of it they could capture. The expansion was rapid. Northern began setting up plants in California, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina. Soon there were 13,000 Americans working for Northern. When it came to grand marketing gestures, nothing was too expensive. Northern chartered a cruise ship, the SS Rotterdam, filled with members of the Fortune 500 community, and wined and dined them for days. When an elaborate trade show in Europe was almost shut down due to concerns over poor ventilation, Northern paid to have an expensive hole cut in the roof. With the financial backing of Bell Canada behind them, Northern was unstoppable. Which raises an interesting point. Why did AT&T get broken up, but Bell Canada was allowed to live on? Bell Canada, although it tried very hard, never quite maintained a true monopoly like AT&T had managed to down south. Although at the peak of its power in the early 1900s, it had steadily lost ground ever since. In terms of sheer land mass, the US and Canada aren't that far off, but the vast majority of Canada is extremely remote. Maintaining a presence in the less populated regions proved so costly that service was often unreliable, angering the locals. In the Maritimes, Bell itself had been pushed out by some local rivals. In the prairies, the residents were so fed up with the poor service that the provincial governments bought Bell out and turned them into provincial utilities. Easily the second coolest things the prairies have done for us after giving us universal healthcare. And BC was so far away that Bell never even bothered to try and get a foothold on the west coast. If Bell Canada had a monopoly, it was restricted to the Windsor-Quebec City corridor, the home of over half the population. Bell Canada had achieved the ideal size, the Goldilocks zone, big enough to dominate the market, but small enough that the politicians left it alone. The few attempts at cracking down on Bell's monopoly fizzled out as Canada's regulatory agencies were undermined and overruled by the government. And if I had to hazard a guess, I think Pierre Trudeau and his cabinet were happy to sit back and watch the American telephone company implode so Canada could pick up the scraps. The Canadian-American divide of the 50s continued to surge into the 60s and 70s. JFK hated Diefenbaker for his flip-flopping over the Cuban Missile Crisis. LBJ hated Pearson's guts for not backing them in Vietnam. And then you had Nixon and Trudeau, two men who could not have been more different in both personality and politics. Whether it was because of Trudeau's open diplomacy with China and Cuba, or Nixon abruptly announcing a 10% tariff with no warning, the Canadian-US relationship truly hit a low point in the 70s. It was in this climate that Trudeau's minority government, with a push from the left-wing NDP, created FIRA. The Foreign Investment Review Agency was, on paper at least, a way to block foreign takeovers and screen foreign investment that didn't bring, quote, a significant benefit to Canadians. FIRA was never very popular. The right wing called it overreaching, the left wing called it toothless, and the left wing of the left wing were over in the corner chanting the words nationalization over and over. Trudeau himself had not been much of an economic nationalist. He'd been pushed into creating FIRA by a minority parliament, and by the 80s the Liberals were desperately trying to woo back the private sector. Pierre Trudeau had served one of the longest tenures of a PM in the country's history, and his later years had been dominated by issues of national unity and an economic downturn. The East-West divide that had always existed continued to widen. Trudeau's nationalization of the oil industry had made him a pariah in the oil-rich West. Trudeau, a longtime opponent of Quebec's growing separatist movement, had become increasingly unpopular in the province after he pushed through a new constitution without their approval. And the practice known as the 60s scoop had continued well into the 1980s, where Indigenous children were forcibly taken from their parents and placed up for adoption with white families. Others were placed in residential schools, where any and all semblance of Indigenous language, culture, and heritage were forcibly stamped out. This was not a united country. For a multitude of reasons, there were and still are millions of people living within Canada's borders who do not identify as Canadian, who do not identify with this flag. If there had been a strong nationalist movement in the 70s, it had fractured into pieces by the 80s. Bell and Northern were among the leading voices in Canadian capital that were demanding a changing of the guard. High tech, they said, was the industry that would yank Canada out of its recession. They wanted the government that would lower their taxes and reduce trade barriers for expanding into the newly vulnerable US market. They would get their wish in Brian Mulroney. Mulroney and his Tories delivered one of the most lopsided electoral wins in Canadian history. He was cut from the same ideological cloth as Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher: deregulation, privatization, and the free market. 23 of Canada's 61 crown corporations were privatized under Mulroney. FIRA, which was already a rubber stamp machine at this point, was dismantled even further and renamed Investment Canada. Its oversight over new investment was completely eliminated, and its ability to block foreign takeovers was scaled back so much, the act has only been invoked a handful of times since. Mulrooney declared that Canada was open for business. He didn't see American money as a threat. He openly welcomed it. As public polling around free trade began to shift, he believed that by adopting it as his party's key policy plank, it would carry them through the next election. Critically though, he would never have considered it if not for his extremely close relationship with Ronald Reagan. Reagan's advisors feared phone calls from Canada because, quote, he could get the president to do anything he wanted. Mulrooney was the only foreigner to speak at Reagan's funeral. Without this close relationship, free trade between the two countries may never have been adopted. We've only seen small glimpses of it, but the US has a long history of its own economic protectionism. Several times in the past century and a half, American tariffs have sent the Canadian economy spiraling. When it pulled out of a trade deal in 1850, the Smoot-Hawley tariffs during the Great Depression, the Nixon shock of the 70s, and most recently, Ronald Reagan had been promoting a Made in America policy that threatened to block companies like Northern from America altogether. Canadians weren't necessarily afraid of free trade. What they were afraid of was getting the short end of the stick in negotiations with a country that many perceived as a bully. This was the message of Liberal leader John Turner. He considered himself a proponent of free trade, but not a bilateral agreement directly with the US. It's one thing to negotiate in the context of dozens of countries coming together. It's another to try and negotiate one-on-one with a country 10 times your size. Thanks to TV ads like this one, free trade became the defining issue of the 1988 federal election.
Since we're talking about this free trade agreement, there's one line I'd like to change.
Which line is that?
Well, this one here. It's just getting in the way.
Just how much are we giving away in the Mulrooney free trade deal?
It also culminated in one of the most explosive moments ever to happen in a Canadian political debate.
I happen to believe that you've sold us out. I happen to believe that once you...
Mr. Turner, just one second.
Once any
you
nation,
do not have a monopoly on patriotism. And I resent the fact that your implication that only you are a Canadian. I want to tell you that I come from a Canadian family and I love Canada. And that's why I did it.
We built a country, east and west and north. We built it on an infrastructure that deliberately resisted the continental pressure of the United States. For 120 years we've done it. With one signature of a pen. You've reversed that, thrown us into the north-south influence of the United States, and will reduce us, I'm sure, to a colony of the United States, because when the economic levers go, the political independence is sure to follow.
This moment resuscitated what many had been calling a dead campaign. There had been talks of replacing Turner as leader mid-campaign, but the Liberals surged into first. Ultimately, Turner's past record weighed him down, and the Tories would eventually clinch the election. The free trade agreement would be enacted soon after, and that was that. With the exception of a few staples like lumber or dairy, the playing field had been wiped clean. It was time to get in the ring and start throwing some punches. Northern's success in the 80s was dependent on entering the hostile American market. After having a pair of Canadian CEOs at the helm, it became clear that Northern needed a CEO with connections in Washington. That's how they landed on Edmund Fitzgerald, a former US Marine, part owner of the Milwaukee Brewers baseball team, and the descendant of a wealthy Wisconsin shipping family. Fitzgerald was perfect for the job. As a Republican with extensive lobbying experience, he rallied hard in Washington against new bills that threatened Northern's southward expansion. Although still Canadian, Northern spoke with a fluent American accent when it needed to. The sales numbers spoke for themselves, but the symbolic victories also helped. The telephone switches in the White House, which had previously belonged to AT&T, were now made by Northern. Although America was the main target of Northern's expansion, the 80s was the decade that Northern went global. They expanded into Europe, the Caribbean, the entire Pacific Rim. They truly made history in Japan, becoming the first ever non-Japanese company to install a telephone switch there. And in 1987, Northern had an almost perfect marketing moment fall right into their lap. An earthquake hits just outside of Tokyo. All the switches in the building break as their mechanical parts are torn off. The only exception was Northern's DMS-10, which was fully digital. The trend of American CEOs continued as Edmund Fitzgerald sought out a successor. He chose Paul Stern, a former IBM exec who he had met while serving on Reagan's telecom committee. One former VP described Paul Stern as, quote, arguably the most bloated ego of anyone I've ever met. He insisted on being referred to as Dr. Stern, which is one of those things that he can technically do, but is also one of the most annoying things anyone can do. He also assumed the 3 top jobs of president, CEO, and chairman of the board at the same time and embarked on a company-wide PR tour on the corporate jet, reminiscent of a political campaign. All the while, he began hacking and slashing budgets, shutting down factories, and firing VPs who looked at him the wrong way. The 90s were a new decade. Northern Telecom had pretty much just been shortened to Nortel by this point. By 1991, they had pulled even with AT&T in the US switching market, with a 40% share. The new Russian president, Boris Yeltsin, even found time to visit the BNR labs on a visit to Ottawa in 1992, where he jokingly tried to pocket a microchip. BNR, meanwhile, had spent the last few decades working on a new way to send phone calls. The pipes that humans have used to send phone calls hadn't really changed much since the 1800s. They started out using iron cables, which, although functional, were highly sensitive to noise and distortion. Early on, many companies made the switch to copper cables, and the world mostly stuck with those for over a century. But now they were hitting their upper limit, and something better was needed. Although they didn't invent the concept, Bell Canada published one of the very first papers on fiber optics in 1966. Using ultra-pure strands of glass, you could pulse lasers to send digital ones and zeros at incredible rates. Unveiled under the name Fiber World, Nortel showcased a line of fiber optic nodes that could achieve transmission speeds of 2.5 gigabits per second. Once again, they had achieved a multi-year head start over their rivals. As the 90s began, Nortel was on the top of the world. Here's a former employee explaining how they did it. The company built great phone systems, and when I say they built them, they really did. They developed their own CPUs, wrote their own operating systems, manufactured all the boards and sheet metal and whatnot. These customers moved slowly. Products were installed and then expected to run for a decade or more, with nothing but backwards compatible upgrades provided during that time. You charged an arm and a leg for what you delivered, and it was very profitable. When you've been at sea for this long, riding the waves of the market, the previous highs and lows begin to feel insignificant. What was once the pinnacle of success is now just a small crest, the halfway point to a bigger and better wave. Nortel had built a 13,000-ton tanker optimized to serve telephone companies, and the sheer momentum of that looked like it would carry them for the next decade. But that momentum would turn out to be a critical flaw. The age of the telephone company was coming to an abrupt end.
Our lives are busy.
And now, from Northern Telecom, a solution.
1993 saw a big shakeup in leadership for both Nortel and Canada. Paul Stern's abrasive personality and budget bloodlust was tolerated up until 93 when Nortel's biggest customer, Atlanta Bell, dropped Nortel following a string of reliability concerns. Paul Stern's cuts had reached the R&D centers, and product lines weren't being updated as much as before. Customers were noticing, and they began to lose ground to AT&T again. Previously heralded as a genius, Paul Stern's tactics were now seen as short-sighted, and he was painted as a tyrant. Bell Canada intervened by blocking the appointment of Stern's close friend as president, instead slotting in one of their own, Jean Monty. Furious at being undermined, Paul Stern resigned in protest. The Paul Stern years are not remembered fondly at Nortel, and if he had any lasting legacy, it was beginning the tradition of lucrative golden parachutes. When he resigned in disgrace, he left the company with $5.4 million in compensation. Jean Monty, quickly promoted to CEO, had his work cut out for him. 1993 was the middle of a deep recession in Canada, and Nortel's stock price reflected that. Speaking of the recession, oh boy, did people hate Brian Mulroney. Plagued by scandals and unpopular policies, Mulroney resigned from politics just months before his party suffered the worst election defeat in Canada's history, forever dooming the PCs to irrelevance. The pendulum finally swung back to the Liberals, seeing former cabinet minister Jean Chrétien ascend the PM's office. If Mulroney was our Reagan, then Chrétien was our Clinton. A Liberal, yes, but a Liberal who had been pushed to the right by a decade of conservative rule. The Chrétien years would be defined by an obsession with cutting the deficit. Housing, healthcare, nothing was off limits as long as the number went down. Chrétien had also partially campaigned on renegotiating NAFTA, a revised free trade agreement that would now include Mexico, but he didn't try very hard. Negotiations had been pretty much finalized by Bush and Mulroney, and reopening the terms was just as likely to kill the deal altogether, which was a political no-go. The asymmetry between the two countries meant there was very little weight Canada could throw around. Even then, on a personal level, Chrétien was not sympathetic to the Canadian nationalists. As finance minister, Chrétien had once been in charge of FIRA, but he had always felt that American money in Canada was a necessary pill to swallow. Years earlier, he had said that there were, quote, a lot of places in Canada where people don't give a damn who owns what. They want a job. And years later, he said, protectionism is not left-wing or right-wing. It is simply passé. The free trade debate had effectively been settled. This new political paradigm was followed by radical changes in Canada's telecom policy. And by that, I mean massive deregulation. It was a burning down of the entire playing field in the name of increased competition. Bell Canada's monopoly on long-distance calls was broken. Their preferred supplier agreement with Nortel was torn up. Phone companies could be TV companies now. TV companies could be phone companies. Cell phones were a thing now too, and everyone was welcome to take a crack at those. To survive, you could no longer be just a telephone company. You needed a thumb in every pie. The US underwent its own version of this with the Telecom Act of '96. The Telecom Act is mainly remembered for flooding the tech market with a bunch of new capital and planting the seeds for the eventual dot-com bubble. But it also initiated a wake-up call at at&t. The last decade had been brutal for them. More specifically, Western Electric was weighing them down. All the new Baby Bells and independent telephone companies refused to buy from them because their money would still just be going to their biggest rival. And so at&t said, fine, we get the message, we'll just spin it off. Western Electric was no more. It underwent a makeover and adopted a fancy new name. Longtime fans might recognize this one, Lucent Technologies. Nortel and Lucent mirrored each other in the same way that the US and Canada mirrored each other. The difference was just size and prestige. Lucent was the industry's 900-pound gorilla, over twice as big as Nortel. B&R was respected, sure, but Bell Labs had 6 Nobel Prizes, and their latest hotshot physicist was bound to win them another. Nortel going public in the 70s was a success, by Canadian standards, but Lucent's IPO? It shattered the world record for most money raised, $3 billion in 1996. Lucent would quickly become one of America's most widely held stocks. If you were betting on either of these two companies, Lucent would be the logical choice. But both of them, at their core, were telephone companies. Neither was truly prepared for the technological upheaval that was going to define the 1990s. Something more radical, unrestricted, and unpredictable than the telephone. You see, there's this new thing called the World Wide Web, a network that brought together text, images, voice, even video, albeit heavily compressed. All of it viewable on personal computers that were beginning to pop up in middle-class houses. The telephone took 50 years to reach around half the US population. The internet did it in 5. As it turns out, the copper wires most people had in their houses to receive phone calls worked just as well when it came to delivering internet traffic. Telephone companies like Nortel were remarkably well positioned to gobble up this new internet market. Or at least they would be if they weren't stuck in their old habits. If Lucent represented the old guard, the establishment, then Cisco represented the next generation. A relatively new company, it was an internet startup fresh out of Silicon Valley. It had blazed a trail in the 80s as the brainchild of 4 Stanford professors and quickly ate up a huge share of the telecom market. Whereas Lucent had decades of AT&T's legacy behind it and a massive scale, Cisco was small, maneuverable, and adaptive. Its CEO was a cool guy. He raced speedboats. And most importantly, it had picked the correct side in a civil war being waged by a bunch of nerds. The two factions were called the Bellheads and the Netheads, and they each had a competing vision for how the internet should be transmitted. The Bellheads were most often legacy telephone engineers who worked for companies like AT&T and Bell. They championed something called ATM switching, asynchronous transfer mode. On the other hand, you had the Netheads, fans of IP, or internet packet switching. Netheads were likely to be open source nerds working out of universities, or maverick tech entrepreneurs working out of Silicon Valley startups, desperate to try and disrupt the AT&Ts of the world. The Bellheads loved ATM because it built off the same principles of telephone switching. When you set up a telephone connection, you want a live, continuous conversation. No buffering. You set up a link between points A and B and shut out all other traffic. It's fast and high capacity. It's not so great though if one point along the route breaks down. Now you have to reroute and set up an entirely new connection. That's where packet switching excelled. Packet switching is like mailing someone a jigsaw puzzle, but each individual piece can get split up and take a different route to the destination. It doesn't matter because once they all reach the destination, they just get assembled into, say, an email. IP by its very nature is decentralized, immune to single points of failure, and notably, very hard to track customer billing with, which frustrated the bellheads to no end. ATM was ideal for the high-capacity optical fiber networks that Nortel and Lucent specialized in, whereas IP was best used with Ethernet cables and routers that Cisco had built its fortune off of. In the 80s, it wasn't super clear who was winning this civil war, but by the mid-90s, it was. It was the netheads. IP was king, and by the end of the decade, ATM was just going to be another forgotten technology like Betamax was to VHS. If you wanted to use the internet, you had to endure this sound and hope that no one else at home was expecting a phone call. No one wanted on-demand, real-time video calls in this era. They were happy with emails, slow-loading websites, and if they were feeling fancy, downloading software from the internet. Activities where buffering and latency didn't matter. ATM was, on paper, the better technology, but the market had committed to IP. Nortel needed to course correct as soon as possible. This is when we meet John Roth. He's what you'd call a company man. A Canadian, he grew up in Lethbridge, Alberta, and joined Nortel in 1969. Although he went to school for electrical engineering, his true talents were not in design. During his entire career at Nortel, he never made it onto a single patent. He was instead destined to climb the corporate ladder, and at just 35 years old, he became a general manager, the youngest person ever in that role. He'd break that record again when he became a VP. Next, he hopped on over to president of BNR, Nortel's beloved crown jewel, and later he pushed for Nortel to get into the wireless market. But his ascension up the corporate ladder was far from over, and by the end of the Paul Stern years, he was president of Nortel North America. By 95, with Jean Monty's remodeling well underway, Roth was made his heir apparent, taking on the role of COO for 2 years before finally getting to wear the big boy pants in 1997, with Monty heading upstairs to become CEO of Bell Canada Enterprises. The model Canadian CEO is like a Canadian Supreme Court justice. The average Canadian probably doesn't know your name. Certainly something that can't be said for their American counterparts. John Roth was no Bill Gates, and he wasn't a Steve Jobs. His first ever interview as CEO, he seemed deeply uncomfortable with the attention. He was boring. The business press was confounded by him. The Globe and Mail, unable to find something interesting to say about him, instead described his body as lanky and weird. Feels uncalled for. Some people compared him to the nebulous cigarette-smoking man from the TV show The X-Files. In other words, an enigma. He also had big shoes to fill. Monty had been named Canadian CEO of the Year in '97, after he turned the company around following the disastrous Paul Stern years. As you know from the intro, John Roth will win the same award, but the road he takes to get there is a little bit bumpier. Let us introduce the John Roth threshold. This is the stock price on the day he assumed the title of CEO. If he leaves the company above this line, he was a success. Let's see how he does. Just 2 months in, on December 3rd, 1997, John Roth sent out a now iconic email to all 74,000 employees of Nortel. It was entitled The Right Angle Turn. Nortel needed to pivot. If you asked him, John Roth could tell you the exact moment he realized that the internet was the future. Like many millionaires, he's an avid car collector. One day, he was trying to find a replacement liner for the glove box of his 1966 Jaguar E-Type, but he couldn't find one in Canada. But as he says here, I started poking around and within 5 minutes, I'm in a little garage north of London. A 4-man operation, and he's got my parts. How would I have ever found this person if he wasn't on the web? Truly a man ahead of his time, he quickly got addicted to online shopping and bought a 1950s jukebox and a pool table. John Roth made it clear, Nortel was an internet company now. How they were going to do that was a serious question. This is a point of contention, and I've heard 2 sides to this. John Roth supposedly went to his technical people and asked them how long it would take to get a foothold into IP. He was told around 2 years, which was too slow for him. On the other hand, I've heard first-hand accounts that Nortel's engineers had a good grasp on IP, and had even published some papers on it in their in-house journal. One of those papers even described a device extremely similar to the iPhone a whole decade ahead of time. There appears to be a disconnect. John Roth and the executives he surrounded himself with did not trust their own engineers, that they were dinosaurs who were stuck in their ways. This is perhaps the reason that Nortel made the controversial decision to shut down B&R. In 1996, B&R and its 17,000 employees was dissolved and absorbed into the rest of Nortel. The Bell Labs of Canada no longer existed. The name B&R, beloved by those who worked there, was erased unceremoniously. In the span of just one weekend, the corporate logo cops paid a visit to Ottawa and had removed every trace that the name B&R ever existed. For some longtime R&D folks, it felt like, quote, a dagger to the heart. Why B&R was dissolved is a bit of a mystery. It's possible it wasn't profitable on its own, viewed as a multi-billion-dollar sinkhole that couldn't exist in this new era that saw Bell downgraded from its long-distance monopoly. By some, B&R's culture was viewed as arrogant. They saw themselves as better than the rest, even down to their insistence that they use Macs instead of PCs. They needed to be reined in, brought into line with the same cost controls and accountability as the rest of the company. Executives began to place less emphasis on Nortel as a hardware company and more so as a software company that specialized in networks. If John Roth needed R&D, he would have to find it elsewhere. And thus began the intense speculation of a merger. For months in 1998, there were rumors swirling in the business press that two of the big three may pair up. Any partnership that emerged would almost certainly be able to crush the odd one out. Nortel and Lucent would be massive. Complete domination in the telephone market, and their combined size could easily fund the R&D to catch up to Cisco in IP. A combo of Lucent and Cisco, or Nortel and Cisco, would be the perfect marriage of legacy telephone tech with cutting-edge IP technology. How far along any of these talks got is unclear. Lucent and Nortel had a huge product line overlap. Any merger would make huge sections of the new company redundant, and rumors of a merger between Lucent and Cisco caused the FTC to jump in and say, hey, we might block this because this is maybe a monopoly. There was also a fair amount of personal animosity between the three companies' CEOs that made any deal with Lucent highly unlikely. Richard McGinn, CEO of Lucent, had infamously hung up wanted posters of John Roth and John Chambers inside offices as a way to motivate his employees, a move that the other two found tasteless. Furthermore, Lucent had recently poached 3 top Nortel execs, and then they went on to sue Cisco over patent infringement. By this point, the only merger that made any sense was between Nortel and Cisco. And so in June 1998, John Roth makes an announcement that would forever change the trajectory of the entire industry. A decision that would set Nortel on the path to become the most valuable company in Canada. John Roth announces that he is buying the IP switching company Bay Networks for $9.1 billion. He's buying Cisco's biggest competitor. John Roth had set off a 3-way arms race.
Do you know that sound? Of course you do.
It's the high-speed wireless internet. It can reach all kinds of neat stuff. Oh, cool. Want to see live video of the accident?
No, thanks.
If you ask a dozen ex-Nortel employees what killed Nortel, I'm willing to bet a third of them would say Bay Networks. Not because it delivered the killing blow, but instead because it was the first of many increasingly bad decisions. It just took a while for everyone to realize the mistake. When Nortel acquired Bay Networks, it was anything but ordinary. It cost $9.1 billion, staggering for the time. Cisco had acquired around 5 companies in the years leading up to it, but each had a price tag that only ran into the millions. Bay was not a small company, and in fact had been the product of an earlier merger. They had around 7,000 employees, most of them in Silicon Valley, all of whom were immediately added to Nortel's workforce. Bay Networks was such a huge add that Nortel even got one last name change, becoming Nortel Networks. The company's CEO, Dave House, was immediately made Nortel's new president, right under John Roth. The two went on a worldwide press tour where they were seen by some as, quote, Batman and Robin. Yet despite all the fanfare, the purchase was greeted by the markets with a resounding thud. People honestly thought John Roth had blown it. Bay was way over the hill. Their product line had already matured too much, and they had way overpaid. During fall 1998, the stock price tanked, and many thought that John Roth would be out the door far sooner than expected. But then, Lucent blinked. See, Lucent had actually been one of Bay Networks' biggest customers. The Nortel purchase had completely locked them out of the IP space, and management began to panic. And so in January 1999, Lucent buys Ascend Communications, the next biggest company comparable to Bay Networks. except they paid a much steeper price than Nortel did, a whopping $20 billion. If people thought Nortel had overpaid, then Lucent got fleeced. Ascend had been doing so poorly, brokers jokingly called it ass end. Following this example, Cisco, which had already been buying companies at a frantic pace, went into absolute Pac-Man mode and gobbled up 18 companies in just 1999. The next year, Cisco's grand total would stand at 64 acquired companies. And Lucent was no slouch either. Bingo, bango, bongo. John Roth had every reason to be smug, and he took a shot at Cisco, saying, "We can learn to spell IP faster than Cisco can learn to spell reliable." Look, you gotta hand it to the man. He's got sick burns.
So you're happy with the Bay purchase?
Absolutely.
And you feel you paid the right price?
Well, it looks like a bargain now in retrospect compared to some of the other deals that are going down.
Okay.
Feeling vindicated now, John Roth had permission from Nortel's board to go on a shopping spree. Between the years of 1999 and 2000, Nortel bought a new company at an average rate of 1 per month. Some were small firms with just one exciting R&D project. Others were well-established industry names. Bay Networks would remain their most expensive purchase, but more than a few of them crossed over the billion-dollar threshold. Altian Web Systems was grabbed for almost $6 billion, yet another big player in the Ethernet and IP space. Kairos went for $3 billion. With just 90 employees, they were developing a cutting-edge technology that would enable optical switching using tiny microscopic mirrors. This shopping spree was indiscriminate, and at times appeared to lack a clear focus. One of Nortel's other major purchases was Clarify, an e-commerce firm acquired for $2.1 billion. Exactly why John Roth wanted to take his telecom firm into the world of customer relations software is unclear. Frankly, some of these purchases were made entirely so that Lucent and Cisco couldn't have them. With every new acquisition came hundreds and in some cases thousands of new employees. Nortel ballooned from 74,000 employees up to 95. In some towns like Richardson, Texas and Maidenhead in Britain, Nortel was the single biggest employer. The right angle turn was a full-blown corporate makeover. Employees would walk into the office and see a giant right angle arrow decorating the floor. This was a company that was fast. From 1997, Nortel went from spending just 5% of their R&D on internet to over 60% in 1999. Nortel's fiber technology went from 2.5 gigabits per second up to 10, 4 times faster than anyone else in the world. Nortel used to plan its projects in years, with full life cycles often being decades, because that's what telephone companies wanted. Roth insisted on a new time frame, web years, really just fiscal quarters, because that's how fast the new economy was moving. And he wasn't wrong. Internet startups had exploded in the last couple years. In 1995, Netscape had an IPO that raised almost $3 billion in just one day. It seemed like anyone who could code a website in their garage could become a millionaire overnight. And Nortel had to accommodate that. Just look at the way its marketing evolved in the past decade. This is a sales video from the 80s.
Meridian One communication systems are leading worldwide with over 50,000 digital voice and data systems installed, ranging in size from 30 to 60,000 lines. Now, whether you need 30 lines or 200 lines, the new Meridian One Option 11 will enhance your business success without the nightmares.
And this is a new employee training video from around Y2K.
And in joining us, you are instantly connected. So here's what you get.
Advanced technology.
Now the world is your palette.
Research and development.
Shaping the way that people would communicate in the future.
Pretty tight, cohesive teams.
This is where the action is.
You are now instantly connected. This is how you connect. This is where you connect.
Welcome to Nortel Networks.
Welcome to Nortel Networks.
Welcome to Nortel Networks.
Even promotions were fast. Tim Dempsey recalls that he spent on average 18 months in any given role. Quote, "We sometimes counted bosses per year instead of years per boss." Another employee I spoke to mentioned that they had 5 different managers in the same year. Some of them they never even met in person. Even John Roth, the person, was fast. The business press had latched on to his obsession with fast cars. Finally, there was something interesting they could write about.
Are you still buying used parts for your 66 Jag over the net?
Well, it's in pretty good shape now, so I moved on to other things. Last day, my wife and I bought some oil paintings over the net.
Meanwhile, in the background of all of this, the rest of Canadian high-tech had undergone what can only be described as a gold rush. Throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, engineers who first got their start at Nortel had been leaving to found startups. And then those startups led to startups, creating a multi-generational family tree that led back to Nortel. Mitel, Corel, Newbridge, Mosaides, Calian, Gandalf, Memtech, Epitech, Lumonics, Siltronics, Nabu, Orcatech, Norpac, Canadian Astronautics, JDS. By Y2K, in the Ottawa region, there were over 1,000 companies employing 75,000 people, and 1 in 5 of them belonged to Nortel. Ottawa's tech scene in the 1990s actually grew faster than the real Silicon Valley, earning it the nickname Silicon Valley North. City Council even tried to rebrand with a new slogan, which did not go over well. You ready for this? The City of Ottawa. Technically beautiful. I'd make a joke here, but a city councillor already beat me to it. If I called my daughter technically beautiful, she'd hit me. Nortel was proudly Canada's single largest spender of R&D. In 2000, it spent $5.9 billion, which, no exaggeration, is more than every other company combined. The Nortel recruitment process at universities was so robust, some likened it to hockey talent scouts. At one point, 1 in 5 engineering grads in Canada were being hired by Nortel. 1 in 5. If you had a master's or PhD, that rose to 1 in 3. From everyone I've spoken to, every interview I've read, Nortel in the 90s was one of the best places to work in Canada. You were paid well, and if you wanted to take a training course, they'd pay to send you. The job wasn't just, here, do this task. It was more like, what can I do to make your job easier? A local car dealer told a newspaper that if Nortel didn't exist, half of his customers would disappear overnight. Dress code was lax, no time clock, an in-office gym, and they threw legendary parties every other week. One recruiter called it a corporate Disneyland. And this next bit sounds like a fake fact, and I can't confirm this, but I want it to be true. Nortel may have hosted North America's largest recreational softball league, with 6 different skill tiers and thousands of players. Nortel had transformed the image of an entire capital city. It had helped to rebrand Canada as more than the place where you got lumber, dairy, and maple syrup. Nortel was a company that was defining what tomorrow looked like. And nowhere was this more crystallized than in their latest ad campaign. Nortel had splurged for the rights to use the Beatles song Come Together, an on-the-nose slogan about their new networking focus. Now, you might wonder, why does a company like Nortel even run ads in the first place? Most Nortel products aren't something the average consumer could walk into a Best Buy and pick up off the shelf. No, these ads weren't trying to sell you on the tech. They were selling you on the brand. The average person may not buy a Nortel switch, but they could certainly buy Nortel stock. Strap in. You're about to witness a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon I like to call the Toronto stock explosion.
Nortel Networks is changing the way businesses communicate.
Hi, I've got a package for Germany.
And with the internet, that's going to explode.
It's been a hot minute since I updated our little stock tracker back here, and that's because to truly appreciate what you're about to see unfold, you need to take a peek behind the curtain. In the year 2000, approximately 75% of North America's backbone internet traffic was carried through Nortel equipment. Nortel was bringing in revenues in the hundreds of millions. But that's not how the stock market works. The stock market, by its very nature, is speculative. People are paying prices based on what they think a company should be worth in the future. So although you can look at things like sales, assets, business deals, acquisitions, a lot of it comes down to guesswork. In 1993, Nortel was bringing in 25 times as many sales as Newbridge Networks, and yet Nortel was only worth 1.5 times what Newbridge was in market cap. Share price is not a reflection of some universal value. There's no formula you can punch a bunch of numbers into and get a single objective number. Sometimes the people trading a stock have no idea what they're talking about. Other times people know a little too much about a stock. And in some cases, the mechanics of the market are just plain being exploited. Due to its peculiar position in the Canadian economy, Nortel had hijacked the rules of the game and had found a way to print money. This is how they did it. Stocks are traded on stock markets. Whether that's in person or through a computer, doesn't matter. A company like Nortel trades on a lot of different markets. London, Tokyo, New York. They sell their shares wherever they're allowed. Same product, different stores. Some markets are more competitive than others. Your company needs to be a big deal to get listed on Wall Street, for example. And even then, you're probably going to be a small fish in a big pond. Nortel did well on Wall Street. In 2000, Wall Street listed its top 20 foreign stocks, and only 4 were Canadian. 3 of them were Barrick Gold, Alcan Aluminum, and Placer Dome. In other words, mining and resource extraction. Nortel was the only tech stock. But where Nortel truly shined was in its home arena, back on Bay Street, at the Toronto Stock Exchange. On the TSE, Nortel was the MVP. First things first is the currency issue. Although Canadians often invest in American companies, every time we make a trade, we're taking a small hit due to the currency conversion, which can add up over time. But on top of that, Canada actually has laws that puts a cap on the percentage of foreign securities you can have in certain investments. Mutual funds, RRSPs, you're generally capped to somewhere between 20 to 30% for foreign stocks. These 2 factors explain why Canadians were biased towards Canadian stocks, but it doesn't explain why there was a sudden surge of investing in the year 2000. For that, we can look at 2 recent changes. The first was a change in pensions. I'm very sorry, I have to do this. This is actually necessary. The 2 main types of pensions are defined benefit and defined contribution. A defined benefit pension is when both you and your employer pay into it, but it's fully on them to manage it. When you retire, they are obligated to pay you an agreed upon amount per month. This is the type of pension that most Canadians had at this point. But by the late 90s, there is a big push to transition over to the other type of pension. In a defined contribution pension, you and your employer both still put money into it, but now it's on you to manage it. You are responsible for your money. Low risk, high risk, whatever you want, but the amount you get at retirement is now entirely on you. The Liberal government was eager to transfer over huge swaths of its employees over to defined contribution pensions. That included the workforces of Canada Post, the Armed Forces, the Mounties, and the gargantuan Public Servants Alliance. That was hundreds of thousands of pensions and tens of billions of dollars that was going to be sunk into the Canadian stock market. Even the Canadian Pension Plan, the old age social safety net for almost half the country, was about to invest its surplus of $2 billion right into the market. This was on top of the pension funds that were already heavily invested in the market, like $35 billion from Ontario's civil servants and $68 billion from Ontario's teachers. The second big increase in investment was due to the capital gains tax. A capital gain is any profit you make on an investment, which includes stocks. At the start of the year 2000, the capital gains rate was 75%, meaning 75% of any profit you made would be considered income and taxed according to your tax bracket. But by February, it had been lowered to 66% and then to 50% by October. Anytime the capital gains tax is lowered, it leads to a surge of new money flowing into the market. You saw the same thing happen in the US when they cut their capital gains rate in 1997. With more upside to potential trades, the average Joe was willing to try their hand at the stock market. And this was the late 90s too. Technology had made trading more accessible than ever before. In the olden days, if you wanted to invest, you had to go to a bank, get a broker, call them on the phone, and then tell them to make a trade for you. That's so passé. People were quitting their full-time jobs to sit at home on the computer and trade stocks on the internet. You can see here the beginnings of what might turn into a feedback loop. Canadians need to invest in Canada, so they invest in the latest big name, Nortel, which goes up in price, which then generates positive media coverage, and so on and so on. But we're just getting started here. The wheels are still firmly on this wagon. The last piece of the puzzle here is something called an index fund. Stock exchanges employ a lot of metrics, stats. It's useful to have just one number to track, an index, that represents how good the exchange is doing. Now, you've probably heard of the Dow Jones or the S&P 500. Essentially, they try to boil down the entire market into just the top 30 or 500 stocks. Some, like the Dow Jones, use what is called price weighting, where a company's fraction of the index is their market cap divided by the total number of shares. Others, like the S&P 500, use what is called float weighting. For a given stock, their contribution to the index considers both their total market cap as well as the total number of shares available to the general public. That's 2 variables. If you were to put this into a pie chart, today's S&P 500 looks a bit like this. The behemoth tech firms like Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon take up big chunks because of their billions of shares. but most of the pie is made up of tiny slices. An index fund is a type of investment that tries to track a pie chart just like this. If I put in $1,000 and Google is 5% of the pie, then 5% of my $1,000 goes into Google. Every time the index updates, so does my investment. In the ultra-competitive market of the US, no one company has clear dominance, resulting in a nice and diversified portfolio. I won't see a huge chunk of money disappear if one company goes under. But what if you add a smaller, less competitive market? Could one company with a particularly massive number of shares take over the index? This is the TSE 300. It's one index that combines the performance of top 300 companies listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. In October 1998, Nortel's share of the TSE 300 was less than 5%, lagging just behind its parent company, BCE. But by September of 1999, it had taken the top spot, grown to 8%. 1 month later, it was 10%, by November it was 11%, and by the end of January, it would be 16%. What is going on here? Well, for one, Nortel's share price is going up, but that's just one half of the picture. You see, Nortel's total share count was rapidly multiplying. Where had all these new shares come from? Normally, the number of shares a company has is fairly arbitrary. A company with 100 shares and a company with 1 million shares could have the same market cap, simply because one has a much higher share price. Sometimes companies undergo what is called a stock split. They multiply the total number of shares, say by 2, and divide the price of each share by 2, keeping the total market cap the same. Nortel in its history had undergone 4 stock splits, 2 of them under John Roth, a fact he was happy to brag about. However, a stock split in a vacuum is neither a good nor a bad sign. It's just an attempt by a company to draw in new investors by making a single share more accessible. It's not like John Roth could just keep doing it like an infinite money glitch. The market would be quick to punish him and take Nortel's stock price. He could go and print new shares as part of employee stock options. And in fact, he did this many times. Nortel was notorious for handing out stock options like candy. Even the janitor got some. Over just a few years, he had printed a hefty 161 million new shares. This too, though, wasn't something he could do over and over. Many of Nortel's largest shareholders complained that their shares were being diluted. If Nortel wanted more shares, they would have to get creative. Enter the butterfly plan. So by this point, Nortel's parent company, Bell Canada, now renamed BCE, owned the largest chunk of Nortel's shares, 39%. So John Roth, although powerful, couldn't unilaterally make decisions without first getting the approval of his boss, Jean Monty, and the rest of the board. Without Bell's monopoly money and a preferred supplier agreement, Nortel would likely have gone under decades ago. But BCE wasn't a monopoly anymore, and Nortel had quickly outgrown its parent. In the year 2000, BCE's stake of Nortel made up 78% of BCE's total value. Think about that. This is the country's largest telephone, internet, and TV provider. Nortel's revenues had grown 26% in 1999. The entirety of BCE's other holdings only grew 5%. Owning Nortel right now seems like a good problem to have, but Jean Monty wasn't entirely pleased with the situation. Nortel distorted BCE's numbers so much that the market was likely undervaluing BCE's stock price. And because they no longer had a majority stake, he was fine with simply divesting their shares. That would mean more autonomy for both BCE and Nortel, which would allow Monty to pursue his goal of creating a domestic media empire. Thanks to the deregulation of the past decade, later that year, BCE would go on to acquire the country's largest private news company, CTV, as well as a major newspaper in the Globe and Mail, as well as dozens of local news stations. Selling off Nortel would allow both companies to divide and conquer, with BCE taking on media and Nortel taking on tech. The question was how to give away the shares. You would think that they would just sell them, make a killing, and pocket the cash, but the resulting tax cost would be immense. So they decided to instead push that onto the shareholders. They came up with a plan known as the butterfly distribution, where for every BCE share that you held, you'd keep that share, but also gain 0.78 Nortel shares. And the total amount of Nortel shares would be split, doubling in number. If you're lost, that's honestly okay. But the bottom line here is that there were now an additional 502 million Nortel shares on the open market. Before this, BCE was the most widely held stock in Canada. Now, it was Nortel. This immediately increases Nortel's weighting on the TSE 300. The butterfly plan brought Nortel from 16% up to 26%. 1/4 of the entire country's premier stock exchange was simply Nortel. But we're not done here. We've got room to keep going up. The butterfly plan was a one-time thing. If John Roth wanted a license to print shares, he needed a repeatable strategy. He found one in Bay Networks. I said earlier it cost Nortel $9.1 billion to acquire them, but I didn't mean $9.1 billion in cash. No, Nortel had paid for it with shares. John Roth had gone to the company treasury with the permission of the board and printed 134 million new shares, which were handed over to the executives and employees of the newly acquired company. Now, there was a little worry about share dilution, but so long as the share price continued to go up, John Roth was able to keep his investors happy. The TSE 300 immediately accounts for all these new shares in Nortel's weighting. This, in turn, causes all index funds in the country to go out and purchase more Nortel shares, which has the cyclical effect of raising Nortel's share price, which also, again, factors into Nortel's weighting. Can you see where I'm going with this? Nortel acquired 18 companies in 2 years, and of the $30 billion it had spent, $22 billion was paid for with shares. The shopping spree had injected 972 million new shares into the market. And here's another thing, not all of these shares printed for these acquisitions were actually available on the open market. If you print a bunch of new shares and give them to employees, they're getting a gift for free. Understandably, they don't know if the stock price is going to go up or down, and it's in their best interest to just sell them immediately and make a profit. Millions of shares being dumped right after a buyout looks bad on Nortel. Hence, the buyouts usually included an escrow clause. The employees of the acquired company are given the Nortel shares, but they can't sell them until the end of an escrow period, which could be anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half. And yet, even though these new shares aren't technically public, the TSE 300 still increases Nortel's weighting. This triggers another round of index funds trying to buy shares, except there are fewer shares available to actually meet this new demand. This artificial scarcity drives Nortel's share price even higher, which in turn increases its weighting, and around we go. Are you following? Starting in 1998, Nortel had gone from having around 500 million shares to over 3 billion. Nortel had exploited the intricacies of the Canadian stock market so badly that by the summer of 2000, it made up 38% of the entire Toronto Stock Exchange. 38%. Does this make sense? Does this seem fair? I promise you it shouldn't. And then things got worse. So, those index funds we were talking about. With Nortel continually eating more and more of the TSE pie, index fund managers had to buy more and more Nortel to fill up their clients' portfolios. But sometime around late 1999, they ran into a snag. See, there's actually a law in Ontario that prevents mutual and index funds from having more than 10% of their value in one stock. Maybe you see the issue here. Nortel was now more than 10% of the pie. It was illegal for index funds to match the TSE 300. And that was a problem. See, the reason people go to professional investors is that they're supposed to know better than the average person. But with the market being anywhere from 15 to 25% Nortel, unless your investment manager was a savant or a psychic, there was no reliable way for them to outperform the market. Thanks to aggressive lobbying efforts, on January 28, 2000, the Ontario Securities Commission introduced what many people called the Nortel Rule. Nortel was not explicitly named in this change, but it was the only company the rule impacted. Index funds were now allowed to go over the 10% cap. Mutual fund managers were out of luck, and they were still stuck at 10. The TSE 300 throughout most of the year 2000 was mockingly called the Nortel Index, because all it really told you was whether or not Nortel had a good day or not. At some point, you would think that someone in charge would step in and say, hey, this is kind of like passing a law where you don't have to wear a seatbelt if the car is a convertible and you have the roof down. Safety regulations are optional so long as you're trying to do something cool. But no. Remember the Canadian pension plan? 80% of it was an index fund tracking the TSE 300. Retirement funds, pensions, personal portfolios all over the country were packed to the gills with Nortel. Canadians were bombarded with Nortel everywhere they looked. It was on the news, it was in commercials. Maybe they knew about it because their uncle worked there, and his stock plan was paying for his new kitchen. Or maybe their buddy made $3K off of Nortel thanks to a good trade the other week. Now they've got FOMO. They want to get in on the bandwagon too. They want to make money, obviously, but, deep down there's probably a little part of them that's, patriotic. They're happy they're supporting the home team. Maybe Canada doesn't make its own cars, or make its own movies. And you know what? We don't even make switches. What we do make is fucking money. In March 2000, at the very height of the dot-com bubble, Nortel had finally surpassed Lucent's market cap. The mouse had eaten the elephant. And on July 26, Nortel set its all-time stock price record of $124.50. With a market cap of $400 billion, it was the 9th most valuable company in the entire world. But there was a leak in the boat. Maybe some of you caught it. I certainly glanced over it. See, paying for a company with shares instead of cash is not some infinite money glitch. Of course not. If it was, why would anyone ever pay with cash? Despite what the headlines on Nortel's press releases said, Nortel was not doing so hot. The truth was always out there, hidden in the fine print. Nortel hadn't turned a profit in 4 years. An enterprise that had existed for over a century would not make it out of the next decade. This is Nortel, and this is how it broke Canada. Hey, are you dying to watch part 2, like right now? Well, you can watch it early right now on Nebula. Nebula is the creator-owned streaming service I'm a part of alongside some of the best educational creators on the internet. There you can watch my videos and many more completely ad-free. Not only do I post my videos 2 weeks early there, but you can also find dozens of Nebula originals not found anywhere else. If you're in the mood for more failed business ventures, then I'd highly recommend Lindsay Ellis's video on the rise and fall of kid-friendly Las Vegas. Or, if you want to check out some fantastic 3D animation, Neo has a series that takes a close-up look at topics like the Bin Laden raid, or the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight 17. Maybe you're looking for advice on making your own videos. Well, for that, there's Nebula Classes, courses by some of the best creators out there on everything from the basics of video editing to elevating your videos with great audio. And here's one more major reason to support me on Nebula. Earlier this year, I was able to make all of this my full-time job. And frankly, it's the only reason I was able to tackle a topic this massive. Signing up to Nebula using my link is one of the best ways to help me out. With it, you get a 40% discount on an annual subscription and access to Nebula Classes, all for just $250 a month. And a significant chunk of that money goes directly to me for as long as you're subscribed, which will help me make bigger and better brockumentaries. Support me and many others by signing up for Nebula today. As always, thank you for watching.